Steve, welcome. Lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you, Artem. How are you?
Less worried than a week ago, but
Okay,
very
right.
pleased to see everyone. So thank you so much for coming.
That's super. So tell me, where do I go from here? I've got this PowerPoint,
Yeah.
which I'm going to talk to.
So
you must just tell me how I must do this.
yeah, let me just launch it for you. So in the
Right.
lower left corner,
Yes.
there are the arrows, and you can shift between the slides with those.
I see that. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. Cool. You must just
Okay,
tell me.
I'll just leave it and leave you here, and we'll come back in like 10 minutes. So enjoy, and thank you so much for coming. Guys, let's share our fire with Steven as a tradition. Have him a greeting.
Okay. All right. Just tell me when I must start. Okay, Artem.
All right. All clear.
All clear. Tell me when. Now. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So thank you very much for the opportunity. This is about something which I suppose everyone thinks about at some level and continuously, probably. So the idea is, who are you, and your identity, and how that works in our lives. So what we're going to work on in this workshop is like what's a story and what's a narrative. I'm sure that many of you know this by now, but anyway, the kinds of stories and what they're used for, how stories you tell and think about not only describe but create your experience of your life in present and future. How stories impact important systems in your body and mind, neurotransmitters, and how the neurobiological aspects of us, how we can change our stories to create different types of life experiences, how to develop a strong sense of self and being better at making it appropriate, what makes your story powerful, and journaling. How do you work with journaling? So we start with this idea that the single most important relationship that is truly central and crucial in your life is a relationship to yourself. Of all the people you know in a lifetime, you're the only one you will never lose. That's from Said Joubert. So here is a lot of people don't like this comment, but see if you can work with it. Inevitably, we construct ourselves. Let me explain. I enter this house and immediately I become what I have to become, what I can become. I construct myself. That is, I present myself to you in a form suitable to the relationship I wish to achieve with you, and of course, you do the same with me. Luigi Pirandello, he's an Italian author. So, who are you and what do you think? Okay, so there are many different ways of answering this question, and maybe here are some of them. So, who are you? So, you are what you think, what you drink, what you eat, what you do, and what you say. You are made of stories. You can empower yourself with your stories. You can disempower yourself with your stories. You're a biological entity, you're a social entity, and you're a gamified entity who are working with many different games at the same time. So there are many other ways of describing yourself, but I think these are some of the most important ones. So the vast majority of people you meet on this planet don't have any clue of how to answer the who are you question adequately. It's something of a lifelong dilemma too, because the more you ask, the more perplexing it becomes, because you'll find that the way you describe yourself to others is not only different depending on the person you're talking to, but it changes from time to time, which is also different from what you describe yourself to be yourself. So who is the real you that has been with you from your first memory? Your body, thinking may be different, but the same awareness you've had since then, you've got. So the awareness doesn't think of itself as a name, an activity, a skill, or achievement, or an adjective. So who are you really? So these are some ideas, that if you, by exploring the question, who am I, we become aware of the limiting ways in which we see ourselves. If we see ourselves in limiting ways, we set ourselves up for a limited life experience. We discover what we say about ourselves is usually what other people have said to us. How do they know that? If we don't know who we are, it's very difficult knowing what makes us happy and fulfilled. So you need to know who you are then. When we see ourselves in a narrow, limiting way, we have to down our talents and potential, and making it very difficult to act in a way which acts on our hopes and dreams. So there's some other things, but let me go to the next one. So let's start with the biological you. So the key systems in your body include respiratory, cardiovascular, digestive, endocrine, urinary, reproductive, nervous system, musculoskeletal, all of these systems in your body. So each of these bodies have got a relationship with each other parts of the other parts of your body. Your nervous system is your body's communication network with the endocrine system. It controls and maintains your body functions and helps you to interact with your environment. And one of the emergent properties, and this is the idea of emergent properties, when you've got something which is very complex, that complexive system is actually creating other things which are not, which you don't expect. So one of the emergent properties of the complexity that is the basic nervous body system brings about what we call consciousness and awareness. There's plenty of these facts now. There's 120 billion neurons in your brain, around 70 million neurons in your spinal cord. These systems are in systemic relationship with all other systems in the body. So what happens in one system affects all the other systems. And this is where the story comes in, yeah? You are also the social you, okay? And here I've got a model of a game. And if you think about it, each one of us play a number of different games at the same time. You're somebody's significant other. You're someone's subordinate. You're someone's friend. You're someone's teacher. You're someone's student and stuff like that. You're also you're a citizen. You have a bank account, and all of these things have got to do with games. And if you think about what a game is, the game has got to do with relations, and there are big games which people, politics and the media and those kind of games. Medicine is a game, brain surgery is a game, and so on and so forth. So they're the big games, and oftentimes you don't think about them as being a game, but in fact they are. And the next thing is that you've got the games which are close to home, which is the school, the game. You're a patient with your doctor. You're also a father. You're a mother. So all of these things. So let's have a look at what a game is. So all games have got goals. Okay, so the game is used to create some kind of outcome. And all games have got their own unique stories. And the story in a game basically works as a barrier to entry. If you don't know the special words of storytelling, or if you don't know the words of brain surgery, you can't get into that game. You can't play the game until you learn the language. All games also have got resources. All games have got a particular style in which they play the game. Like you might find football players, football teams, they're slightly different because they've got slightly different style, they've got slightly different rituals and things like that. So you've also got in a game, you've got certain values. Why are you playing this game? How are you playing the game? What do you believe in order to play that game? You also have got rules, you've got rituals, and you've got roles. And anything which you change in that game changes the nature of the game. Let's say, for example, in football, you say, okay, we change a game, we're going to pick up the ball and run with it. Now that's going to change the game entirely. And if you think about the games which you work in, you can start to make changes in your life by starting to make small changes in a model, something like this. Maybe change the rule, change some of the rules, or bend the rules, or change the linguistics which you use and how you use them, and so forth. So, how stories impact body and mind. So, stories are known to have impacts on the nervous system, immune system, and the endocrine system. You can change your stories, and there are going to be different life expectancy. And so, how do you actually change the stories and experiences? And the first thing is to work with different words and different metaphors. Metaphors are really important because it's a way of understanding the world in a very, very unusual and useful way for you. Also, different perspectives and different settings. These are some of the things you can do with your stories. Okay, the kinds of stories we've got the literal stories, which are often spoken about narrative, and the literal stories are to do with time and things which have happened at a particular time. Then you've got your allegorical story. The allegorical story's got symbolism and metaphor and ways about understanding human experience in a way that the audience can appreciate it, the underlying meaning of that. And then you've got anagogic stories, and these stories are to do with mythologies, legends, fables, that kind of thing. So each of those stories are appropriate for certain things and often not for other things, yeah? And we will know some of them, what they are. So what makes your story powerful? The story can be told simply and easily. The story can have a long time frame going into the future. So that's one of the ideas of people who are empowered, that their time frame of their story goes far into the future, and whereas disempowered people, they have a very short time frame of their future, of themselves. Where am I going to get money to get food for today? It's a very short time frame. Just an idea with that, the Catholic Church talks every 2 years. They talk about what the Catholic Church is going to be like in 200 years' time. So that's powerful because the narrative goes into the future. When told and retold, the story maintains its essential integrity. The story evokes a feeling, an emotion. You feel good when you tell or think about the story, and the story connects with what people already know. It's unfamiliar territory there. It will be no entry point for the reader. Right, so here's your nervous system and mood states. And we talk about the left hemisphere, which has got its own very, very particular way of working, and you've got your right hemisphere. It's said that the left hemisphere is to do with logic, certain neurotransmitters like adrenaline and stuff like that. So the left hemisphere is to do with focused attention, looking at something and not thinking about anything else except that which you're looking to. And it's also to do with fear and anxiety as well. So the left hemisphere is great for following the rules, but it's not great for creating what the rules should be. For that, you've got the right hemisphere, which is to do with a different kind of set of neurotransmitters. One of them is acetylcholine, which gives you a hakuna matata. You know that there's a long time frame. You don't have to worry. There doesn't have to be problems. You can chill out. You can be. Whereas the left hemisphere is very tight, focused. Time is a problem. If there's a problem, you know that you're going to have problems and things like that in your life. So the thing about this, when I talk about it, when you are creating a story, when you're trying to develop a story, you can't be in the left hemisphere. You have to be in the area of the right hemisphere, which is metaphor, different words, things which are how are things and how they work and stuff like that, and having basically been chilled out. Whereas the left part of it is reading stuff, and I'm trying to jump between the two. And what's very unique about human beings is that the really interesting way of being very aware and very creative is to be able to jump between the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. And by doing that, whoops, can you hear me there? Oh. Okay, I think you were there. All right, so when you're creating, you need to be in the right hemisphere. You need to be in that mood, in that space, and you can make yourself feel how you want to feel. Yeah, you want to feel good. You want to be fine. You want to be able to create something. You jump into the right hemisphere. And the interesting thing about what humans do, which no other animal does, is to laugh. And when you laugh, you jump between the high focus left hemisphere to the open, fluffy part of the right hemisphere, and you jump between the two when you laugh. So if you really want to feel good about things, make yourself laugh and you'll feel better. So start laughing first. All right, so let me go to the next one. So the way which the brain works has got a lot to do with the way you think about your brain. Once upon a time, people would develop steam engines, and they would say, oh, well, the brain is much like a steam engine. You put coal in it and water, and you put fire in it, and then it thinks, And then the telephone exchange came, and then people said, the brain is much like a telephone exchange. They've got wires which are plugged in and out and stuff like that, and it makes a connection, and it brings out a memory and stuff like that. Other people think about the mind as being a garden. Think about how you cultivate your garden of your mind, the garden of your mind. And it could also be something like a cockpit over there, which you see in an aircraft, where it gives you all kinds of information about the outside world and the way which how that actually works. Oh, it's just gone again. So the important thing about the brain metaphor is the metaphor which you use about your brain has got a lot to do with how your brain works. So think about some really interesting ways of doing that and creating ways of thinking about your brain and thinking about how you'll be different as a result of that. Right. We used to talk about how the brain worked, when the computer was developed. People were maybe talking about how they think the human mind thinking brain stuff works in our minds. And you've got this idea, and maybe we've got this at a certain level. You've got the BIOS, basic input-output system, and basically that's the hard code of the computer. It's about how it relates to other things inside the computer. And you've got your short-term memory, your long-term memory, and you've got some sort of software. So if you think about your brain like that, it enables you to do the kind of things which a computer might do, but it might inhibit you from doing what a computer might do at the same time as well. So you might think about your desktop in your mind and what different triggers you've got, what things you can press over there to make certain programs run. Like if you're a manager, there's a certain program you're running. If you're a father or a mother or something like that, you're also running programs like that with your kids. So think about how your software works. Metaphors. I'll leave you to read this. But the way which you think about things and the way which you describe stuff is like really important. You cannot describe something in terms of itself. If I were to say to you, this table I'm sitting at is as smooth as a table, it would mean nothing. But if I said that this table is as smooth as the lake on a river on a moonless night, it would have a different kind of a feeling to it. So the way which you use the metaphor is really, really important, especially with the world around you. Yeah. So finding metaphors, and then I'll start to end up with this bit about what is thinking. And ultimately, what is thinking has got to do with storytelling in your mind. You're telling stories to your head about yourself in your world, about your world, and the way which you use your linguistics, the way which you use the words, and the way which you pack them together create emotions, understandings, awareness. Yeah, there's a theorem by Sapir-Whorf, which is over here. It's the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, which suggests that it is not possible to think without language. And I think it's impossible to actually test that. But you might think any kind of experience you have, every understanding you have, in order for you to share that with me, you need to have words. And the words which you work with, has got a lot to do with the way I understand it, okay, and vice versa. And here's another thing over here, eunoia. It's a very rare word in English. Eunoia basically means beautiful thinking. And think about, do you think beautifully when you have the experience? When you think, how do you feel? Yeah. And this thing about, are we living in the present? And in fact, no. The answer is no. While you're from about 0.5 of a second, including internet time, it takes for us round about 0.5 of a second to understand what is actually happening around us right now. And as soon as our awareness is there, we're already 0.5%, half a second of a minute, half a second. Yeah, I'm in that area. Okay, sorry. So we all are we're always in the present. So I'm going to give you a last thing over here. Get a journal, start using it, and write your own stories and dreams. Draw some pictures. This could be around your pencils, crayons, paper. No computer is required. Try and do it with your hand. Try and do some. And here's an exercise which we use for school kids. And basically what it says is a timeline. And it says over here, everyone has got this timeline, but we start at the birth, your beginning, yeah? And it comes to the end, yeah? All of our lives, books, yeah? All of them work like that. So what we ask you to do is to look at that line and take an X and put it where you think that line is. And it's got a lot to do with where you think you are in life. And then what you do is, between where you are and your birth, what have been those experiences you have had which have made you what you are, who you are? And from the X now to the end of your line, you'll talk about the experiences which you would like to have in your life. So I'll leave it with that. Are there any quotes or any questions and stuff like that?
That's quite a lot to process, honestly.
I know, sorry.
Okay, guys, if you want questions for Steve, considering what he told us and about how stories shape who we are, please write them to the chat. I actually have one.
Yeah.
You were talking about how our body is, well, basically we have different types, different parts of our body that are communicating between themselves.
Systems. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
systems.
and I was wondering, how does that influence the story we tell about ourselves? Not in terms of, public speaking storytelling, but
Yes,
in a
sure.
deeper meaning. Can you elaborate a bit more on
Sure.
that?
Sure. Well, it's the way you think about yourself and the way you talk about yourself for yourself, to yourself, when you're thinking to yourself about it. So basically, the way which you understand it is that you have information coming in and you're trying to pick up feedback from how that information comes, yeah? And you create, I mean, my understanding of you, what I see of you is not outside of me, it's actually inside of my nervous system. And what I see is inside of me, it is not what I see in the picture over there. Do you understand? You create a model, in other words, of the world around you, and that's the model which you have your engagement with. It's basically you create a world inside of yourself, and if that world is a fearful, exciting, worrisome world, that's going to mess you with your endocrine system. That's going to make you feel sad. That's going to make you feel sick, possibly. And it's going to mess with other systems in your body as well. So your whole system has got to do with the stories which you are listening to, what you're telling yourself to, what you're suggesting that you should not listen to anymore, and the stories which you would like to listen to anymore. You become literally you're a creature of story. Everything which we know about ourselves, everything which we know about about the world around us, are stories, and those stories have been made up. They're constructed. They're made up. Yeah. So we live in a world. There is some. There is some. Yeah. We make it up as we go along. I think it's the way of seeing it and enjoying it as well. So I don't know.
Okay. We have one more question from Yana in the chat. Stephen, thank you so much for commenting on mine.
Pleasure.
So let me translate it real quick. How can a person who is stuck in difficult stories get out of them? And continuation, how can we teach the person to see a different narrative? The law of Heb is working on to the maximum, to the fullest.
Yeah.
I don't know this law, but maybe
I don't know it either. We should ask about the law of Heb. But I think if you're stuck, okay, what's sticking you, first of all? What because you've used the word stuck, okay? Is it like glue? Is it like paper? Is it like what are you stuck in? What are you not enjoying? What are you not experiencing? So first of all, just take stock of what you are, what situation you're in. And the next step is to think about the story of the future. What do you want? And I think that's a very, very important question. Knowing what you want is probably one of the most important questions you can ask yourself. Not knowing what you want makes you available to anything. You can do anything if you don't know what you want. So this is a very, very important thing. So ask yourself, do you like this situation? Yeah, what would I like? And think about it and become very, very clear about what you want. Instead of this, what changes do you think need to be made in the game in which you're playing? Because you seem to be playing the game of being stuck. Yeah, so you need traction to get out of out of being stuck. So just by using the word stuck, okay, is it fly paper? What do you know? What would it be? How would you feel if you weren't stuck? What would be possible then? So it's asking these questions for yourself, but having a pretty good idea of what you want. If you don't like it, what it is at the moment, decide what you want. And when you know what you want, then you become powerful. then things change. Is that a good answer for you, Artem?
Jana is writing super answer about the Buddha. Sorry,
So,
I was about to say half of a sentence in Russian and English. All you said about the future is great.
yeah.
Oh, and we have actually an admiration and the question from Vinod. He's writing that this is a magical of neurological, physiological, psychological aspects working, and how storytelling has a huge play in this. And his question is, the first exercise, timeline. Can you
Yeah.
share an example of someone discovering some significant stories?
Well, I did that timeline. Oftentimes, it makes a big break. I did one for a group of nuns who were working in the Catholic Church, yeah, and I gave the timeline to them, and that X where you say where you are on that line, all of them put the X very, very close to the end. All of them, yeah. Other people, like for example, kids out of their school, they're looking right at their, they're in the first 10% and stuff like that. So oftentimes when people think about that question about what are the kind of experiences which you've had in your life from your birth to now, what have been those which have made you who you are? Some people might have had a traumatic experience. Some people might have had a fantastically wonderful experience, but we all have different things where, for instance, somebody told me, I'll give you an exact example. A guy told me he was extremely, very, very, extremely wealthy guy. And everything he was one of these Midas touch guys. Everything he touched to turned to gold. And he told me his experience was that, he was at school and stuff like that. And, he was doing, and then at the end of his school, the last couple of days of his school, he walked back home and he found the client's possession, all of his family's possessions were outside of the road. And it seems to have been that they had been kicked out of their house. And when he had that experience, he decided very clearly that he was going to be very bloody rich, which he actually did because of that experience. That's when he became what is it? Economically adult. Yeah, that's the way he described it, because of that experience, and it made him into rocket fire. He did all kinds of things as a result of that. So maybe that's an example of it. But each one of us have got these kind of experiences, and just think about what they are, and maybe share them with other people, because you can learn a lot about people from their stories. Yeah, Martin?
I'm experiencing, and Vinod is also, he's saying fantastic. Thank you, Steve. I agree with Vinod. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Oh, lovely example.
Cool.
Okay. While we are waiting for some more, if there are going to be any questions, let me just copy the links that you wanted to share. And there is this virtues and quality self-assessment, and then the email, so you can use those. But in the meantime, Steve, I want to ask you this question I pose to every speaker. So by coming to this conference, you've proved that we can actually, as people, cross the borders and for a greater good. And this is a great meaning. So give me one more meaning, like a statement that you would like people to get inspired about, so we can live in a world with more bridges in it.
I think write our own, make our own stories, make our own narratives, and make those narratives beautiful. Really, if whatever you do, make it beautiful and enjoy, So, and if everyone, can you imagine if everyone in the world had that idea? What would happen?
I tell you what would happen, because I have a sticker. After a coach session. It's like pinned to my board, and I was thinking that this coaching would lead me to understand my strategic goals and
Mhm.
areas and positioning.
Yeah.
But what we discovered was a simple phrase
Mhm.
that really motivates me. It has 3 words in it in Russian.
Yeah.
It's going to be beautiful.
It's
So
going to
every
be
time I do
beautiful.
something,
Yeah.
that it's like
Yeah.
it's the leading phrase. It's like
Mhm.
what can I do for this conference? So
Yeah.
it is beautiful. So
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
exactly as you say.
Yeah. Why not? Why not make it beautiful?
Lovely.
So yeah, and go back to that idea, because if everyone else had that idea at the same time, everything would change instantly. A lot.
Yeah, that is so true. Thank you so much, Stephen. It's been so lovely to see you here with us and to have you
Pleasure.
share.
Pleasure, Tim. I really appreciate your time and what you've done over here. So I really appreciate it. So what do I do? Do I just turn off the camera and watch
Yeah,
the rest of it?
I'll take care of the rest, so don't worry. Guys,
All right.
let's shower Stephen with our appreciation for his multi-directional talk, I would say. Thank you so much.
That's it.
Thank you.